If the Miami Hurricanes are going to land a top 5 recruiting class of 2026, the following prospects are must-gets.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We made it. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code Locked On College at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. On this episode of Locked On Canes, must get prospects for Miami. We might even predict the next Miami football commit. Let's bring on very good friend of the show, media mogul, who's all over X, who's all over the podcasting scene. Miami sports reporter Geo Milian is with us. Gio, I look at this first big weekend of OVs coming up on May 30th, and the name that I have circled is Derrek Cooper, the 5-star athlete / running back out of Chaminade-Madonna. He's one of those South Florida kids that you do not want leaving the area. Would you consider Derrek Cooper a must-get?
Absolutely. I think he is a must-get. He's right in your backyard. Tremendous athlete, 5-star himself. Miami's actually only one of the few schools open to him possibly playing both sides of the ball, potentially some defensive back or linebacker, kind of like a rover type, and running back at the next level. That's something he has some interest in. I've mentioned a few times I've had a pick placed in favor of Miami for Derrek Cooper dating back to November. I love how they're trending. I love my pick, too. I think it's Miami.
And I hope it's Miami because I look at Derrek Cooper's official visit list, Gio. He already officially visited Auburn. He's got Miami visit on May 30th. He's visiting Alabama the weekend of June 6th. He's scheduled to visit Georgia June 13th, Florida State June 15th, Penn State June 17th, Ohio State June 20th. So he is absolutely making the rounds. I mean, I think that's, if I count 6 official visits, like players weren't even in the past, we're not even allowed to take that many official visits. I know they opened that up and expanded it to beyond 5, but do you think he makes all those OVs this summer, or do you think he might trim his list down a little bit?
I could see him trimming 1 or 2 schools off that list. It's really down between Miami, Georgia, and Ohio State, mainly a Miami and Georgia battle. I think you're going to kind of see a scenario play out where Miami's also pursuing Jay Lamar, another one of their top targets at running back as well, from Colquitt County, same area in Georgia where Nikar came from and recent NC State transfer linebacker Kamal Bonner. But I could see a situation playing out there where Miami and Georgia kind of split hairs there, and Miami gets Cooper and Georgia gets Lamar. It's really difficult to get 3 running backs and 1 class in this era now.
You know, Miami, of course, I don't think we've spoken, at least not on the air. We haven't spoken since Miami landed Jackson Cantwell a couple of weeks ago. Are you feeling like, covering recruiting, that Cantwell maybe created extra buzz around Miami and there could be this Jackson Cantwell effect where more great players are going to want to join him at the U?
Yeah, I could absolutely see that. And reason why I'll say that is it definitely helped out with a guy like Derrek Cooper, helped out a lot with a guy like Breck Kolojay, who we'll get to in a bit. Mario Cristobal and that coaching staff, they think Kolojay is the best interior offensive lineman in the country. Maybe the recruiting rankings don't reflect that, but how they feel internally, they feel he is the #1 prize in the country.
Oof. All right, so and Kolojay, we'll get to him. He's visiting first OV weekend of June. Staying on that May 30th weekend, you got defensive lineman Lamar Brown visiting, along with edge Anthony Jones out of Alabama. Lamar Brown, by the way, out of Louisiana. Chauncey Kennan, a cornerback out of Sarasota, is visiting. Messiah Hampton, wide receiver out of Rochester, New York. Keyshawn Stansel, who I like, a defensive lineman out of North Carolina. Samori and Wingo, I know we've talked about him before, wide receiver out of St. Augustine. A couple of Miami verbal commits will be visiting, like Jontavius Wyman, cornerback out of Georgia, former Georgia commit who decommitted, flipped to Miami. Camden Portis is going to be visiting. Are there any other players in that May 30th weekend, Gio, that you consider to be either must-gets or maybe players you think Miami is trending for?
Yeah, so taking a look at it here for that first weekend, because I set aside some notes here about that. One guy that I have circled on that list that's a high-profile guy that Miami's very much in it for, Chauncey Kennan out of Sarasota, Florida, plays for Booker High School. Miami legacy, Florida State legacy. He's got a few legacies in his family, but the main one being Sam Shields, is his uncle who played for the University of Miami and became a Pro Bowl cornerback for the Green Bay Packers. In the past, we all remember Sam and his time at the U. But Miami's very much been in the picture there. They moved the needle, especially coming off his unofficial visit during the spring game. Florida is the other program to watch there. Georgia kind of hanging there in the mix, but mainly a Miami and Florida battle. And I'll mention again, too, that he's also very close with Jalen Waters in Miami's recruiting class as well.
Yeah, I've noticed that Jalen Waters, Mr. Seatbelt, former Florida commit, now at Miami, is he's got some connections to these guys. All right, so let's talk moving up to that first OV weekend in June, because you mentioned a name who's one of my favorite players in the class, Breck Kolojay, interior offensive lineman out of IMG Academy. I'm not going to argue with you when you say that Miami thinks he's probably the best interior offensive lineman in the class. I would tend to agree based on what I've seen and heard about this young man. Do you think Miami's making a move? Because there have been times where I kind of thought maybe Miami was falling behind there. Other times where it looked like Miami was trending out in front. Are they trending out in front again?
Based on the recent feedback that I got in regards to his recruitment and asking some people around the program and just kind of the sense and feel of the situation, it's Miami in front right now, and Georgia's playing from behind. Miami's done a really good job in this recruitment. I think people don't realize this, too, that Miami has been recruiting Kolojay for close to 3 years now. He used to come on trips when all the other IMG Academy guys were coming out of high school, like Francis, Riley Williams, Tripp, all those guys, Jaden Wayne. Kolojay used to tag along on some of those trips too. So Miami's very much been invested here for years now. The relationships are really strong, especially with Coach Mirabal and Kolojay. They have a very real shot of getting this one done. Obviously, Georgia's going to continue to fight to the bitter end, but as it stands right now, I like where Miami sits in his recruitment.
By the way, every year there seems to be certain programs Miami battles for like a half dozen different recruits. Like some years it's been Florida, a lot of years it's Florida. Ohio State has been one of those. Is Georgia that team this year that Miami's going to be battling more than anyone else? Because we already saw how it played out with Jackson Cantwell. There could be another 3 or 4 of these battles.
They're in some fights with them on quite a few defensive backs. One they're even trying to flip from Georgia right now. And another local guy here too, and Justice Fitzpatrick, that Miami's been going back and forth for, Minka Fitzpatrick's younger brother. Mostly at the defensive back spot and offensive line. There's a lot of competition there with Georgia. And then 2 other programs that throw in there, Alabama and Oregon, are involved with a lot of guys that Miami's after this year. And one last program you could throw in, even Ole Miss.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Well, I've got questions for Gio about a couple of different wide receivers, including one who's in the area, and maybe a basketball offer might help land this young man. You want to keep it locked right here. We got Gio Millian with us. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending and overspending on stuff like food delivery and streaming services. I mean, if until you have it laid out there right in front of you, you don't even realize how much money you can be saving. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. For your next listen, make sure you check out The Portal. Our pal Brian Smith, who we did a crossover episode with the other day, hosts the Portal podcast, taking you all around the NIL game, transfer portal, recruiting. Sure, he'll be talking about the Derrek Coopers and the Calvin Russells of the world. The Portal is available free wherever you get your podcasts and free on YouTube. We have Miami sports reporter Geo Milian with us, who's been all over Miami Hurricanes recruiting. One of these names, I think I just spoiled it a second ago, Geo, but Calvin Russell, 5-star receiver out of Miami Northwestern, is also a very good basketball player, and that's part of his recruitment. Like, he really wants to be a two-sport athlete, and a handful of programs, including Miami, have offered him a basketball scholarship. And Jay Lucas has even agreed to allow him to play both sports, which means joining the basketball team, a few months after they start practicing. Where do you think Miami stands with Calvin Russell?
They're in their best position in this recruitment throughout the whole timeline right now compared to any other moment. He's much more interested in the program than he was before, especially with the basketball component. I wouldn't say it plays the biggest part in the entire picture for him. LSU and Oregon are obviously going to make a big battle for him there. Florida as well. I've actually heard that Syracuse and, just that whole sentiment that they were the program way out in front, it's kind of dissipated over time. And funny enough, I'll mention, he's not the only wide receiver in South Florida that Jay Lucas is considering taking within the basketball program at UM. Jay Lucas also went to go see Jasen Lopez recently, 4-star wide receiver out of Chaminade-Madonna Prep right out here in Hollywood, Florida. They're very close to extending an offer there as well for basketball. So could be two for ones.
And you're a mind reader, because Jasen Lopez was the next player I was going to ask you about. So, you already talked about the recruitment aspect with Lopez, but what about the on the field, Gio? Because it seems to me like he would be kind of the next Xavier Restrepo with even higher athletic potential.
I would agree with that assessment in terms of his athletic profile. He's a tremendous hooper, put up 32 points, actually. I think it was last week in the UA competition that he was in. So I think just from a, how would I say it, production standpoint too, last year had over 1,000 yards coming into that Chaminade-Madonna Prep offense. He wasn't the most highly touted guy joining that receivers group as well last year. There was guys like Denarius Gray and Jabari Brady joining that program last year, other local prospects. But the one who rose to the top was Jasen Lopez. So
I love it. Gio Million is with us. Another wide receiver I wanted to ask you about. The flip potential Miami with Tristan Keys, LSU committed receiver, top receiver in the class. How much smoke is there? I know Miami's not the only program trying to flip him, by the way, but do the Hurricanes have a shot?
Yeah, out in the public, he has shared that he's solid in his LSU commitment. Behind closed doors, that's a very different story. A lot of different programs involved here: Alabama, Tennessee, Miami. I know Oregon has some interest too. Ole Miss, the local schools as well. I feel like I might be forgetting another program in there. There's a lot. Texas A&M is another big one in that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very NIL heavy led recruitment for Tristan Keys. There's been a lot of chatter recently that he may back off that LSU commitment. I'm not saying that's for Miami, like for him to just flip immediately to Miami, but that's more of a long play I would say, in terms of the feel of that recruitment. And speaking to some people involved in the 7-on-7 scene, that he'll take his official visits, even if he commits to another school or sticks with LSU right now. He's still going to take game day visits. This is one that's going to stretch all the way into December.
Now, on the flip side, pun intended.
Actually,
is there? Oh,
before I forgot a little tidbit there. He may be on campus next week for his official visit to Miami. It's not set in stone that weekend yet.
Yeah.
Him and the number one tight end in the country, Mark Bowman. Those are two possibilities still on the table for next week, and we'll see if it happens. There may be some rescheduling and whatnot, but those are two to keep an eye on. So potentially some more 5-stars showing up.
Well, and that's also a good reminder that sometimes official visits can be scheduled or finalized a little bit at the last minute, because there are, like, when I look through, the reported OVs that are happening, like, there are certain players that I don't think have anything on the books officially yet. I might be mistaken, but I don't think Calvin Russell has an OV on the books yet with Miami, but that's going to happen, right? And same thing with Tristan Keys. Yeah.
I've heard potential dates for him is either that June 6th weekend or June 13th for Calvin Russell.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of resources out there, like 24/7 Sports and On3, where people can look at scheduled or at least reported official visits. And if you don't see certain names on there, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen, because sometimes these things can be scheduled at the last minute. But, talking about a player that I hope doesn't flip in the other direction, being away from Miami, any concern with Jordan Campbell, the Miami Northwestern linebacker, who's been committed to Miami for quite some time, but he's got a very busy official visit circuit coming up. Any cause for concern?
I think slight concern. Auburn is very much in the mix there. They're the program to watch. Florida, there's been some chatter about them too, but mainly it's Auburn that's pushing really hard to try to flip him off his Miami commitment. Again, he recently came out with his I think he has like 3 or 4 schools on his official visit list. Miami's going to try to weather the storm there. They have a whole bunch of other linebackers that they're in play for. Like they're still chasing after Tyler Atkinson, 5-star linebacker from Georgia. Even if that's going to be a tough one to get into, they're still trying to push there. They're trying to get in the mix with Xavier Griffin, who just decommitted from USC last week, another 5-star linebacker out of the state of Georgia, originally from the state of Alabama. Alabama's considered like the favorite there right now, but Miami is trying to get in the mix for that 5th official visit.
I love it. Well, we got more for Geo Million. I want to get some more predictions from Geo. He gave us a solid one on Derrek Cooper earlier. And if Geo expects Miami to close things out with a top 5 recruiting class, Hurricanes are currently at number 10. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. Miami sports reporter Geo Milian is with us. So Geo, Miami, as I mentioned, 10 verbal commits. We got a long way to go in the class of 2026, but Jackson Cantwell helped Miami, obviously helped their ranking. The Hurricanes currently have on the composite a top 10 class, number 10 class in the country. Is top 5, because I mentioned there are must-get players. Do you expect Miami to finish with a top 5 class when it's all said and done?
I think there's a possibility. I hate to be hedging bets here and be on the fence. It's very difficult to land a top 5 class. You're talking about that you have to corral in possibly 3 or more 5-stars in your recruiting class to kind of be within that range of being top 5. I think a safe bet can be top 10. I like where Miami's trending with like 10 or 12 guys right now, specifically. So I think top 10 is very realistic. Top 5, we'll see. Their name is involved with a lot of 5-stars still on the board right now. Anything can happen between now and December. You have the game day visits and, potential last minute shakeups and recruitments and whatnot. So I think top 10 is a safe bet. There is a possibility for top 5, though.
I'm going to take that. You're telling me there's a chance. Gio, a couple of tight ends that I really like. You know, my favorite guy in the class, because he's just such a freak of nature, is Jasen Kent. You know, and apparently he's down from 300 to about 280, but the guy is built like an offensive tackle, runs and catches like a tight end. He's going to be visiting the weekend of June 6th. And we also have our eyes on four-star tight end Israel Briggs, who's out of California, who's visiting June 13th. You know, Gabby Urrutia at 24/7 Sports mentioned that that's really a guy to watch. What can you tell us about these tight end prospects and how close or far Miami might be?
Yes. So when Israel Briggs committed to Arizona State some while back, a lot of people were kind of surprised with that at the time. No one was really expecting that. Miami didn't flinch when it came to that. They continued pursuing. They really liked him. They brought him in for a game day visit actually last season as well. I had the chance to speak with him. Really intelligent young man, handling the process very well too. Just no silly games or funny stuff or whatever. You know, he's just all about his business. He kind of projects quite a bit like a flex tight end, not really an inline type of guy, but really big target, 6'6", about 205, 210 right now. Still got to get in the weight room a bit, but the ability is definitely there. I like where Miami's trending there. I've mentioned it over on the private board the last couple of weeks as well. I dropped a huge update on offensive targets and even a surprise pick in favor of Miami that people weren't expecting on offense, but offensive line actually. But the other tight ends though, Jasen Kent, absolutely agree with you in terms of like the build, 280 pounds, about 6'5", 6'6". He's massive, massive kid. Coach Cody Woodiel, the tight ends coach for Miami, he's really enamored with the type of talent that Kent is. Miami, Florida battle there. Texas kind of lurking as well, but will come down between Miami and UF. And from my understanding, I believe UF has some type of connections to them that I've overheard in terms of their coaching staff, but that always doesn't play out in favor of any school. You know, it's just you got to go through the process and see how things go. But things are trending well there. They'll have him on campus soon, as you mentioned. And the other sleeper guy, Zachary Turner, the tight end out of, I think he's out of the Texas area, actually. So SMU involved there, Miami, Texas as well. Oklahoma is another program that's really taken quite an interest in him lately. So,
Like that. Would you agree with me that in terms of defensive tackles, James Johnson, who's now at Miami Northwestern, top priority guy when it comes to, you know, solidifying that DT class?
yeah, Miami's very much in the mix for James Johnson. Him transferring down from the Fort Myers area, he was playing at North Fort Myers, down to Miami Northwestern this year. Obviously, that helps being in the backyard. Georgia, very much in the mix there. Texas trying to get into it, Auburn as well, but mainly a Miami and Georgia battle. Georgia has felt at some points that they kind of lead. Miami feels otherwise. So we'll see how that plays out down the road. But I would say between him, a guy like Lamar Brown, and Kendall Gervil, another Fort Myers guy, those are kind of like the top guys there. You could probably throw in Bryce Perry Wright too, who Miami got him to back off his official visit to Ohio State and rescheduled to Miami. So really big win there for them.
So, you know, I'm looking at the final big OV weekend of summer, which is the June 20th weekend. What about receiver Vance Spafford, who's committed to Georgia? This is another one. There's been a lot of speculation that he may back off the Georgia commit, and Miami's one of those programs that looks like they're right there trying to trend for him.
Funny thing about that recruitment. So I had mentioned something this week in the private board, and then I dropped a big update on the offensive side. We'll drop another one on defensive side between today and tomorrow. But in terms of Spafford's recruitment, I mentioned a little comment there when discussing his recruitment, saying that some people have felt like USC is the dark horse and whatnot. But I mentioned that that's not what I've heard, that USC would have a lot of ground to make up aside from him being committed to Georgia. You know, there was a lot of buzz to USC. Sure enough, over the last 24 hours, news breaks that USC canceled his visit, and they're no longer going to pursue him. So I had a whole bunch of people in the board joking around saying, man, you're a mind reader. Someone tipped me off about that, about the USC thing. I really love where Miami's trending with him. I think if you had to kind of say who are that top 3 group of guys that Miami would really love to land at receiver, starts with Tristan Keys, and then you got Vance Spafford and Calvin Russell right behind him.
I love that. And any other predictions? Any nuggets you're holding back, Gio, on players I may or may not have mentioned? I mean, I've given this nugget over and over again. I think Cannon Pickett is going to be a Cane, interior offensive lineman who's going to be visiting that June 20th weekend. Son of Booker Sr., younger brother of Booker Jr. But is there anyone else I'm leaving out, or you think Miami is trending well with?
I'd also mention Ashari Charles out of Venice, Florida, 4-star pass rusher. Miami really likes him. I've entered in a pick for him dating back in February. Some other guys I'll bring up here. Breck Kolojay. I'll share the nugget here on Locked On Canes, actually. He is the one that I logged the pick for in favor of Miami this week.
I had a feeling.
So I really like where Miami's there. I'm close to logging one on Israel Briggs, but I'm kind of holding off on that. Kind of want to see where things play out with official visits coming up. Obviously, Miami's in a really good spot leading into it. Same way I feel about some other guys like Devin Jackson. I think he's a guy that doesn't get talked about enough, but someone that Miami fans should monitor much more closely. Miami and Oregon, really big battle between those 2 schools right there, but the relationships are really strong with safeties coach Will Harris.
I love it. Gio Millian does a fantastic job. You've mentioned the private board. Where can people find that and all the other work you're doing? I mean, heck, you and I are even working on a project where we could be coming at you with some Florida Panthers talk very soon. So you are all over the place.
Yeah, so you could find the link to the private board. It's on Discord. You can find it on my X profile on X at Geo Milian. I'll also drop it in the comments here after this show is up and everything. I'll drop the link right there in the comments. You get a ton of content. There's film reviews coming as well from Amon Richards himself, and some other surprises coming up too.
I love it. Gio does a fantastic job. Make sure you follow him on X at Geo Milian. Follow us at Alex Donno and at Locked On Canes. And we'll talk to you guys next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.